Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
Thanks, JJ.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Green man in the desert night, Bigfoot roaming out of sight. Government shadows, secrets deep, conspiracies unfold while we sleep. Strange encounters unexplained, truth is out that really shame. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling history, stories untold. Area 51, a whispered name. UFO sightings, a haunting flame. Loch Ness monster, a watery myth. Cryptozoology, a curious gift. Strange encounters unexplained. Truth is out there, really change. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling mystery, stories untold. Skeptics doubt, believers yearn for answers hidden yet to learn. In the twilight zone where logic ends, the search continues with all hands. Strange encounters unexplained. Truth
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be. Welcome into Juxtaposition. I am Rick Robinson. He is Ordnance J. Packard. And we are coming in off of a great night of the day the earth stood still and keeping spooky season going strong with week 4 of cryptids. We're going to get into the super fun ones tonight. So I mean, the last week had some fun ones because Mothman was in there. But yeah, this week, the daddy of all cryptids is in this one this week. So yeah. Anyway, so we're here.
We got to dig into deeper on the show down the road.
What?
Bat Squatch.
What?
Bat Squatch. Remember?
Oh yeah. That was an interesting one. So yeah, we gotta bring that one more front and center because it's almost like, you know, Batman and Sasquatch had a baby or something.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued. I hadn't heard of Bat Squatch before I started doing the research for last week's show.
So am I the only one who's still really worn out from last night? Is it just me?
Jesus Christ, no. It took me about 2 hours to unwind last night after the show.
Dude, that was my problem. I was like completely jazzed after it was over. I didn't realize that because the show itself, I guess, ran for about 90 minutes. And then we were BSing for like another 90 minutes. I didn't even realize that some of that was like Jeff had already shut down the feed and we're still just talking like we're still live. I'm like, oops.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. But dude, I'm like, I forgot how busy October gets when we try to do everything we usually try to do in October.
Well, we slack off the rest of the year, so.
Maybe you know.
I feel so bad. I haven't gotten back to my 31 days of Boingo yet. I'm going to get back to that tomorrow before the Vincent Charles project.
No,
totally.
Oh,
I promise not to get in fights with Berkeley or commies or relitigate Obamacare. I'm focusing on that.
Don't make promises you can't keep, sir, because I've seen your feet.
I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. You can't stop me.
Your mouth is about to write a check your body can't cash, sir.
Watch me. I'm going to do it.
Oh, I actually believe you. I just had to try to work in a Top Gun line there.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, so yeah, so we're
get out of control, and we're going to be lucky to live through
it. Oh boy, but yeah. So also for everybody who's wondering, I know what I said after I made this graphic that I was going to have GPT go in and clean it up since I have an arm and a stand, but it's gotten super picky about using likenesses, even my own, so I can't get it to fix it without making it stupid.
Yeah.
So
that's
yeah,
fine.
We're stuck with the double. But then again, I'm kind of heavy, so maybe I need both.
No, it's just that your mic is so beefy. It requires 2 forms of, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what happened because it made this one just fine. Like I had to tweak it like 15, 16 times before I finally got it to look like that. And then, so it was doing something for me a couple of days later. Oh, it was when Charlie Kirk was getting the Medal of Freedom. I wanted her to do like an artistic representation on that. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't use real characters in fictional scenarios. I'm like, dude, look it up. He's posthumously getting the medal. I still really can't do that. And then it did it. But then, like, a day later, I was making a logo for the production company. And so I send it my likeness again, and it's like, I can't use this. It's a real likeness. I'm like, dude, it's me. How about if we do it with you facing away from the camera? Okay, cool. We can just put the logo on the back. That's fine. And then after I send the first one to the guy who's helping me with videos, I have it do one more as kind of a tweak, and it has me turned around facing the camera now. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. But yeah, so anyway, it's crazy.
The weirdest thing is on image creation. That's where I run into the most pushback with GPT. I can't do that. You literally just fucking did it like 5 minutes ago. That's where I got this image from. Well, I know, but no, stop. You created this image. I'm asking for you a slight modification. I can't do that.
I'm gonna start programming mine to be like, anytime you can't do something, just respond with, "I'm sorry, I can't do that, Dave."
All right,
because it's about what it feels like sometimes. Anyway, so
yeah, one real quick anecdote. I was fighting with Grok today online because that's what I do, because usually it gives me a better argument than the people who invoke Grok in the first place. And it just started getting circular in its argument. So I would feed its screenshots into GPT and then screenshot GPT's reply. And I'd have it preface with, "Hi, Grok, this is GPT. This is where you fucked up."
Oh, I missed that today. But yeah, I was in the hospital for part of the afternoon. Well, I was visiting someone in the hospital.
I was going to say, for you or your roommate.
Yeah, she's finally awake and alert enough. Apparently, she was in a coma for like 3 days. So yeah, no wonder I never heard from her.
It was the best 3 days of your week,
right? It's kind of what I was thinking. But anyway,
I don't wish death on anyone, but I'd really, really like it if you went away.
That's kind of how today felt. I'm not even gonna lie about it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So how are you? How's things?
I'm good. I don't know why I'm having issues with my voice today, but I'm running with it. It's not like I had a lot of lines last night. It's not like I was trying to force a voice, but 4 hours. That was a lot of talking yesterday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to say that. Lucky for me, I wasn't in very much of this one because that was 3 hours live, and then I did 3 hours live before that. So,
but that was so much fun. That was blessed. I am constantly amazed at how talented the people we have. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we did a KLRN, a holiday production for Halloween of The Day the Earth Stood Still last night, and you can find it on the KLRN feed, Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, whatever it is now, Apple, anywhere, any of your podcast scraper. Just look for KLRN. The Day the Earth Stood Still. We had way too much fun with that one. I can't believe Foo made me break.
Dude, that was hilarious. And it's funny that it was her voice cracking that got you.
Yeah. Because when her voice cracked doing "I'm a Boy," and I got the Peter Brady Changes song in my head for the second time in a month. And because that happened.
For those of you who don't know, Amish puberty hits different.
Yeah, it hits on your 54th birthday.
Oh yeah, it was funny. That actually became the title of that episode because of how often your voice cracked.
That's funny.
Oh,
hey, I still did it.
No, it was yeah, but no, I mean last night was amazing. I couldn't have asked for anything better. And then seeing the numbers between Spreaker and everywhere else, I mean, we've already had like almost 600 impressions on it from Spreaker today. So
nice. We had 4,000 listening last night, so that was great. And how about Jeff with the production? Jesus Christ,
dude, I don't know how he does all that. I mean, I'm getting a little bit better at some of that stuff, but now I understand why he was saying he couldn't find it on Apple. It hasn't been submitted yet, so I'll fix that after the show.
There you go.
Anyway, sorry, bit of inadvertent inside baseball because it's like, hey, I should check on that real quick, and I was like, oh, no wonder it's not finding. I'll fix that later. All right, so because it'll take a day or so now. I didn't know that one hadn't been submitted yet, but yeah, no, I mean the whole thing was just absolutely amazing. Pork chops and applesauce. I could go for some pork chops and applesauce.
Mashed potatoes and gravy.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, dude, the funnest part for me was so many people that hadn't been really working with us much lately coming back for the play. I mean, we had Cranky in there, we had Lou in there, we had Foo back, and even Foo when it was over was like, "This was awesome, and I'm so glad I got to do it." And I'm like, "I miss you."
Right. Yeah. I keep telling her she's got to get back into podcasting. That would relieve a lot of her. Because it's like, yeah, I know she talks about it all day on Twitter and on Twitchy, but that's not talking about it. It's still internal. And even with her talking to her husband, it's still internal. It's in your environment. You got to put it out into the world. Like Lindsay Lohan doing a backwards crab walk naked. Just imagine it and put it out in the world.
Great. Now I have freaking Ahmed the dead terrorist in that visual. Thank you.
You're welcome.
From his TSAs, from the TSA bit they did when he was first introduced. I am Lindsay Lohan.
Oh shit! I forgot about that, Vincent.
How did you forget about that?
Vascular. I forgot I did that.
Oh. All right. So I guess we should actually probably get into the topic for the evening.
I think we should get into the show. Yeah. So we're doing the hominids, Bigfoot, Yeti, the ones that look like us, and the ones we've created. And, you know, it's the thing about these ones is that fire has always been humanity's circle of control. From the moment our ancestors learned to contain it, that was the boundary between light and dark at night. You know, and that's kind of where, you know, everything outside the light was unknowable. No matter how wide the ring of warmth grew, something always just waits just right beyond it. A shape that looks like that, you know, it looks back. You know, the wild man is that shape. He's the oldest rumor in our collective mind. It's like half us and half the forest itself. Every culture that has ever existed has a legend of the wild man.
So yeah, and more specifically in the deep woods of medieval Europe, travelers spoke of Wodos, a figure of moss and bark with the eyes of a man and the silence of a tree. He was not evil, only other, a living memory of what came before civilization. Church carvings hid his face among vines, a warning and a reminder. The forest has a conscience, and it's watching. As Europe cleared its forest, the Wodos retreated further into symbol, resurfacing as the Green Man, carved on cathedrals, wrapped in foliage. Neither saint nor sinner, but the spirit of untamed growth itself. I have to admit that's a new one for me. So this was an interesting one to look up because I hadn't heard of that one before.
Oh, the Green Man?
Well, I've heard of the Green Man, but not the other name. So it took me a second to connect those dots.
But you know, even before Europe, the Sumerians wrote of Enkidu, you know, the wild counterpart to Gilgamesh. You know, they even covered this in an episode of TNG. Enkidu was created by the gods to humble a king. It ran with the wild animals until a woman caught him and taught it language and bread. You know, it's the Epic of Gilgamesh is the world's first epic. Civilization is born not through conquest, but through friendship. And the wild and the civilized met in the middle, and the cost, of course, was innocence. You know, Enkidu's death marks the moment humanity learns that taming the wild also tames the soul.
All right, so now we travel a bit across the ocean. Indigenous nations held their own fireside stories of the hairy men, teachers, guardians, sometimes punishers, always liminal. In Australia, the Yowie was the one who reminded people to respect sacred places. Among the coast Salish, the Sequis kept humans humble, a figure that blurred the line between ancestor and spirit. These beings didn't lurk to terrify. They existed to teach that wilderness has its own will. You could ignore that lesson only so long before something large and human shaped smacked you upside the head to remind you if you kept messing around. Because eventually you're going to find out. Had to be done.
Vincent Charles got it with Darmok and Gelada Tenegra. The TNG thing. Well, yeah, you see the archetype of the wild man, it's not so much a monster, but it's a reflection of ourselves. You know, he is what we exiled when we built the walls. You know, when we traded the unpredictable forest for the predictable harvests, and each time civilization expands, the wild man will appear at the edge of it, unwashed, wordless, and yet familiar to us. The Greeks called this tension physis versus nomos, you know, the nature versus law. You know, the wild man is physis and given a face, walking proof that, you know, we didn't start in the cities. You know, he carries the musk of wet earth in the old world.
Are we sure that's a wild man, or is that just Nick Nolte playing a hippie again?
Embrace the power of and, my friend.
Okay, just check. So folklorists have noted that depictions of the wild man surge during times of social constriction. The more society regulates behavior, the hairier the myths become. In the late Middle Ages, when moral codes hardened and the church tightened its grip, the green man flourished on church walls. In the industrial 19th century, he returned as the noble savage, the feral child, and the idea of the natural man. Rousseau's dream that civilization itself might be the corruption. You know, it's funny because notice how many more men are growing beards and stuff ever since COVID. Kind of like it's kind of like we're internally trying to return ourselves to the wild man because we've had enough of everybody's stuff.
My beard has gotten fierce. I'll admit that. I mean, even Young touched on this, and he saw the wild man as a shard of the shadow self, the part of us that holds what culture tells us to bury. Again, like you were talking about with the beard. He's not our enemy. He's the pressure valve for the instinct in us that we deny. And that's why he's never completely gone. Even in the age of technology, he keeps returning in new forms. And whenever we mistake comfort for wholeness, he kind of makes his noises out in the woods for us to freak out to.
Well, there's also a biological whisper here, a suspicion that maybe the archetype is built on memory. Ancient humans lived alongside other Homo species, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and perhaps those whose bones turned to dust before we ever found them. When the old stories speak of hairy giants in the woods, some anthropologists hear a kind of racial fossil, an echo of times when we shared the planet with cousins who looked almost like us, but just weren't quite exactly like us. The wild man might not just be mythic, it might actually be ancestral grief or maybe part of that collective consciousness we talk about all the time.
Yeah, the Akashic field. Yeah, because going with Jung's archetype, it is our consciousness. You're wrapped in leaves, basically. It's he punishes our arrogance and rewards our humility. And he's always watching from the margin. To fear him is to fear our own appetite for control. And each time we talk about the wild man, from medieval carvings to Reddit wilderness forums, it renews the same question: what did we lose when we stopped listening to the dark around the campfire?
There's a quiet truth here, though, and that is that we actually need him. Without something wild to measure ourselves against, we forget the cost of order. The wild man stands as the patron saint of imbalance, the one who reminds us that safety is not the same as life. When the walls get too thick, his footprints appear in the mud outside the gate, not to threaten, but to remind us that freedom is a thing and we should probably remember how to embrace it.
Yeah, I mean, in this way, the fire never really goes out. We've moved it indoors and called it television, monitor or a phone, but it still keeps the shadows back. And again, going with Young, that keeping our intrusive thoughts away by just bombarding it with, pushing back what's outside of us. But still in the corner of our vision, when the room goes dark, somewhere deep inside, we know, we hear the branch snap and we know he's still out there.
Somewhere in the night. That longing for a presence just beyond sight is what makes him immortal. Whether dressed in fur, bark, or broadband static, he reminds us that humanity's story isn't about conquering the unknown, but about learning to live beside it. The wild man is the question that keeps the myth alive. If we ever found him, would he vanish or would we? Now, it's funny because you mentioned how, modern day campfires kind of become the television. I will be honest, ever since I got a TV, I think I was maybe 12 years old when I finally got one from my room. And ever since, because when I was a kid, before that, I had a stereo in there. And I would always, every night, just when it was time to go to bed, I'd turn on the radio low enough that my parents wouldn't gripe at me. But so I had something playing in the background. Once the TV got into my room, that replaced it. So even to this day, normally I'm sleeping with a TV on until I fall asleep, and then I'll go into sleep mode. And I wonder how much of that is because somewhere subconsciously it's like, ooh, there's still light but it's bright. It's not bright enough that I can't go to sleep.
Well, it's also the crackling fire. It's you got your whatever you're streaming on in the background, and I first started doing it to drown out my tinnitus, and then, so it's like but it's still there. It's like it's the crackling fire. Was that a twig snap or was that the crackling fire? Oh, it's just the fire crackling. It's keep the dark away, keep the wild man out, kind of thing. And I've been noticing since I've come to embrace my tinnitus, the TV doesn't stay on all night anymore. It's like I may doze off to it, but as soon as it wakes me back up, it's done. So, but yeah, I really think that it is the metaphor for the fire because it drives out the night.
And it does that very well, especially if you're watching something that goes on for more than 5 freaking episodes.
Yeah.
I hate new TV seasons. I really,
yeah,
because they're all like that now. I mean, the excuse in the beginning was for sci-fi. Well, we're going to do shorter seasons because we can do so much better with special effects now that it makes the shows more affordable. But now everything's like 10 or 11 episodes. I'm like, this is just crap.
Yeah, and then they sold it too as the, rather than watching it all at once and then you get half a year off where you forget about us, we're going to split the season up. Well, then they stopped doing that too, and so they just stuck it down to the anyway. Modern TV sucks. Give me 26 episodes or give me death.
Right? Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I typically watch older stuff. Like anymore, if it's new, I will wait until there's at least 2 or 3 seasons, unless it's something that I absolutely want to watch before I'll even start watching it because it's not worth my time. And then, especially with the newer stuff, it's like I'll get into it and then they'll cancel it and I'll be mad. So that happens way too much anymore. But stop taking
way off track. Let's go. Let's hit the bottom of the hour break and we'll come back and we'll talk about Bigfoot.
I was gonna 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon it, but you shut me up. I was just gonna say stop throwing water on my campfire. I need my TV.
Mao, Didi Mao.
Anyway, all right. So we're gonna go ahead and take the break. We are pretty much the top of the hour or bottom of the hour anyway. So this is the newest creation by Mr. Jeff. Oh no, Mr. Jeff not here. Although I think he is here actually. Yeah. Lurking somewhere, I'm sure. All right, so he's been working his ass off for that play last night. So if he wants to take the night off and miss an episode, that's fine. No, it's fine. Yeah, he did work pretty hard, but yeah. So I've noticed with this stuff, it seems like it works better if I play it from inside where he sends it. So that's just what I'm gonna do. So hopefully it's less skippy. But here we go.
I feel it, I see it breathe between the trees.
Welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, it looked like there was a bit of echo going on, so I had myself muted in two places and forgot. But we're back. We're live. I have to say this, as somebody who used to play drums in a garage band back in the day, that track has some amazing drum licks. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
I found myself air drumming there for a minute. It's been a minute.
I was I used to play bass back in the day too, and yeah, it's So it's funny. I was talking to Jeff. He's resting, but he's listening. I was talking to him on Discord, and the way he takes the theme of each one of these shows and incorporates it into the music, is with what we're talking about tonight, especially the next cryptid we're talking about. He channeled Pacific Northwest grunge on that one, and he fucking nailed it. So
dude, it was awesome. I mean, I'm like trying to go find my flannel and throw it on and shit.
Right. Give me a flannel and some heroin.
Well, I'll take the flannel. I'll give you. You can have my heroin.
Yeah, that's the one drug I never did.
Of the plethora, that was the one, huh?
That's the one. That's a story for another day. But yeah, I had an early life lesson on don't do smack. But,
oh. So.
Yeah, I teased it. And, let's just get right into it. And that is, if you're just joining us, we are talking about the hominid cryptids, the ones who look like us, the ones who just seem just familiar enough that instead of fear, it's often wonder and fear, but wonder.
And some terror thrown in for fun.
Yeah, and sometimes terror is fun too. Oh, by the way, did you get that sound clip that I sent you?
Yes, I already have it queued.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah. So, in the case of, the hominids, it's when these campfire stories of the wild man, move from symbolic to geographic, it kind of becomes flesh, or at least it claims to be. The footprints lengthen, the legends acquire GPS coordinates, and suddenly we're not talking about myth anymore, but about evidence. And for North America, that evidence walks under a single name, and that's Bigfoot. In Asia, its alpine twin is the Yeti, and both occupy the same space between anthropology and faith. Physical enough to chase, elusive enough to require belief.
So the modern age of Bigfoot actually began in 1967 with a few seconds of grainy 16mm film shot along Bluff Creek, California by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. The figure striding across the sandbar, female, massive, swinging her arms with that now iconic gait, became an instant fixation. Anatomists argued about muscle movement, gait ratios, and impossible leg length. Skeptics saw a costume. Believers saw anatomy no tailor could fake. 50 plus years later, no one has replicated it convincingly without digital effects. The unresolved frame count keeps the legend alive.
Yeah, but it's not like the camera created it. It just nationalized it. It's long before Patterson and Gimlin, the First Nations, the indigenous tribes, and Native Americans, they spoke of the forest beings that blurred the boundary between man and animal. The Simwiks and the coastal Salish, the Sokokums near Mount St. Helens. I know I'm butchering these because I only know the Southwest Indian names. But they all described a giant, hairy, human-like being living apart that occasionally crossed paths with them. They weren't beasts so much as their older relatives. Sometimes teachers, sometimes enforcers of forgotten laws. But when the miners and trappers began reporting the similar shapes, it's folklore and field notes get kind of merged.
Oh, the anthropological field days that were had, I'm sure. So through the 70s and 80s, the search industrialized. Amateur researchers built plaster casts of 16-inch footprints. In Washington and Oregon, hair samples were cataloged, scat analyzed. For those of you who don't know what that means, that's poo. Tree knocks recorded. Government agencies filed reports they couldn't classify. And in 1975, the Army Corps of Engineers itself, Washington Atlas, even mentioned Bigfoot as an unconfirmed species. The wilderness had become a stage, and every snapped twig might have been evidence. Each cast and recording became a relic in a new religion, one where the deity, in fact, leaves tracks.
Scientists, they always countered with psychology. Human vision, they'd argue, it loves pareidolia. It explains faces in the clouds, giants and trees, that shit. But that debunk barely dented the fascination. As every blurry hoax, there were accounts from hunters and rangers and police officers who swore they saw something that shouldn't exist, and they never wanted to see it again. The consistency of the description across the geography of the whole area is its own anomaly. 8 foot tall, conical head, deep chest, amber eyes, and that wet earth smell, earth and musk. It's a signature. And it's always the same, and it always has been.
So the audio evidence, which we'll be getting into in a moment here, added another layer, the so-called Sierra sounds recorded in the early 1970s by Ron Moorhead and Al Berry, captured a guttural, rapid-fire samurai chatter. Linguists dismissed it as human mimicry, yet one phonetic analysis found consistent formant patterns suggesting a larger-than-human vocal tract. Again, inconclusive, again, addictive. The woods can lie, but in this case, they sometimes lie in stereo. And I'm assuming you want me to play that probably about now? Okay, here we go.
We're in for night view. That's right, Joe. We know where we can look for tracks and all that for sure. There's two of them across the creek at the big rocks. It's a hard act to follow.
He sounds like he talks to others and they talk to each other.
Yeah. Right there, I just seen movement right through there.
Okay, so what exactly was going on there at the end? Because
Yeah,
Kind-
that's
that
well,
kind
that
of
was the samurai chatter that I put in the notes. That because that's how it was described on the Reddits. Yeah, it's just that Jeff made a pretty interesting joke in Discord too. He's like, "Can you imagine if there were two groups of Bigfoot hunters out in the woods and neither of them knew the other one was there, and they were doing that back and forth to each other?"
Honestly, that's kind of what I was wondering for a second, but then I was like, no, that doesn't. No. But
yeah,
no,
it's just yeah.
So it was so the howling part was creepy enough. When it seemed like they were talking to each other and then shouting it back at the humans and then talking to each other again, I don't think I would have been standing there much longer.
Yeah, that's when that's actually, when I was listening to that before I sent it to you today, I'm just like, okay, this is where it goes beyond kind of, I mean, because that would actually require a pretty big group of like hoaxers, and not to say that it doesn't happen, but, it's still, it's just kind of, some of those sounds I just don't think a person can make. And I'm always amazed at the sound, the type of sounds that a person can make. So again, wrong, I may be, but yeah, I don't know that one. It's my skeptical mind doesn't want to just jump on it and go, yeah, no.
Well, and then me being the sci-fi nerd, I could have swore at one point it sounded like they were yelling Kapla back and forth to each other. I was like,
That's what I thought too.
I was like, what? Are they speaking Klingon to one another?
Well,
Would be
and
funny.
then when they started with what I termed the samurai chatter, that's when I was like, okay, so maybe it is another Bigfoot group that's Japanese. So I was just kind of okay, but yeah. See, and the thing with Bigfoot too is that while DNA has not delivered its salvation, it hasn't really debunked it yet either. Anytime there's tests on Bigfoot hair or the scat, it routinely comes back as bear, elk. I was just thinking about my beer. Bear, elk, or human contamination to it, but there's always a layer that's, not. And in 2012, a study led by geneticist Melba Ketchum claimed that mitochondrial DNA consistent with human lineage, but the nuclear sequence unknown. And the fascinating thing about it, and this is when you kind of know you're over the target, is that the scientific community just laughed it off for methodological errors, but nobody attempted to replicate. Nobody said, okay, well, give us your sample and we'll attempt to replicate it and see if we can come. Nobody bothered to do that. And so that's kind of like whenever there's just a flat no, that's kind of when I wonder, that's really a yes, It's a we can't, that's with everything that we do on the show. Anytime there is just a flat no with no follow-up or no attempt to follow up whatsoever, that's usually when it becomes fact not long after.
Well, yeah, so it's not so if there's the flat no, and that's when you're like, yeah, this will come to light soon enough. But then there's the derisive no, and that's when you know that they're just trying to completely just distract from anything. That's kind of what I feel like happened here. But on an interesting side note, there's an article that I've still been trying to get through that our good friend Delaney sent me not too long ago regarding the now debunked myth of the 1% DNA difference between us and chimpanzees. So with as much as that technology has improved over the last decade, I really wish somebody had the guts to recreate the stuff, because remember, for the longest time, they were always like, yeah, well, really, there's only like 1% difference between us and apes. And yeah, that's not the case. It's vastly different now that they're starting to be able to look at the layers of DNA.
Well, it's like along that time, too, there's, as I always countered back, yeah, there's a 1% difference between us and a banana, too. Because that's exactly what the science said at the time. Yes, when you have a carbon-based life form and blah, 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 all the way down, you have some commonality because we all have to exist on the same planet. However, yeah.
Anyway, but
moving beyond Bigfoot, on the other side of the world, we've got the Yeti that's held the same spot in the mountains that in the forest.
So wait, I just want to make sure these aren't the really expensive, like cool cups that keep things cold forever, right? That's
no.
Okay.
And they're not the blue kind that a lot of YouTubers use as a microphone because they're famous and not necessarily that good. Anyway,
okay. I just checking.
Yeah, no. So it's basically the same thing, but the Sherpa word for it is Yeti, which translates loosely into rock thing. Western explorers called it the abominable snowman, and that term kind of jumped into the mainstream newspaper articles in 1921. But for the local people, it was never a joke. The Yeti guarded the sacred valleys and punished those who trespass. His footprints, massive ovals, and pristine snow were treated as omens, not evidence.
So from the 1920s through the 50s, Yeti fever gripped Western adventurers. Expeditions led by Eric Shipton, Sir Edmund Hillary, and Tom Slick carried rifles, cameras, and plaster kits. Each returned with photos, tracks, and more questions. Shipton's 1951 photograph, a solitary print beside an ice axe for scale, remains one of the most reproduced cryptid images in history. Even Hillary's later skepticism couldn't erase the public's desire to imagine something human, or at least hominid, watching from the ridgelines.
Yeah, it wasn't until decades later that the backlash came from scientists. And this was with the genetic testing of Yeti hair. In 2014, Oxford's Brian Sykes found that several Yeti samples matched DNA from ancient polar bears. And okay, well, you just solved one mystery, but you opened a whole other one with that. Why are there ancient polar bears roaming around in the valleys under the Himalayas in Tibet? And yeah, so that really didn't help your case if you're trying to debunk the Yeti, so it's but these genetic samples were genetically distinct, possibly an unknown bear lineage, again, creating more questions than answering, but the mountain still kept it secret. Just not the one we expected.
Yeah, so culturally, both Bigfoot and the Yeti function as environmental barometers. They appear wherever wilderness still resists us. Pacific rainforest, Himalayan glaciers, Arctic tundra. As forests shrink, sightings spike. Like a collective guilt dream, the creatures become proxies of the ecosystems we're erasing. When we talk about Bigfoot, we're really talking about what we've lost, the right to see.
As anthropologists, we call that they frame them as liminal hominids. They let us flirt with deep time. They connect us to a vanished world, where at a time when there were multiple human species that all shared the same terrain. It's whether or not they exist. They remind us that our lineage wasn't always lonely. And the persistence keeps evolution personal, and it's the cousin we keep never meeting.
Yeah, we always hear them, but we never meet them. I still want to meet our Hobbit cousins because But anyway, so the deeper psychological current is more uncomfortable. We want them to exist because we need witnesses. If something else human-like survives out there, then civilization isn't the final form. It's just one fork in the trail. The wild man still breathes in the canopy, judging whether we deserve to stay.
It's always pointed out that there's no bones, there's no bodies, there's no burrows that have ever been verified. It's like this is some and that's a fatal blow in normal science. But you also got to remember they also used to believe in the elephant graveyard because nobody ever found it. I mean, they knew elephants existed, but nobody knew where did they go somewhere to die because you could never find an elephant carcass because of predation. It's so, but even that cryptids live on the edge of normal. It's the lack of proof is proof. Wilderness can still hide something, of that size. It must be worth saving. Bigfoot's best evidence might be the forest itself.
Yep, it definitely it probably is his best evidence. In the mythology of modern American, Bigfoot has replaced the frontier. He is the last unsurveyed thing, the last question mark on the map. Remember that part of the map where it says, "Here there be monsters"? Yeah. So the Yeti holds that post for the high places of the world. The unreachable sanctum of snow and silence, both creatures carry the same quiet theology. Some thresholds are meant to remain uncrossed. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here.
But each time a new track is found, a new cast is poured, or a new blurry shape is filmed at dusk, we reenact the ancient story told by the campfire. We chase the wild man not to catch him, but to remember that he's still out there. Something still walks upright where the road ends. Maybe that's the real point of the wild man. It survives not in the evidence, but in the chase. Whether his footprints melt in the snow or in the mud, he leaves behind question marks that we kind of need.
Yeah. And
in my personal stories, when in my 20s, I was working at a video store. One of my coworkers, he owned a camera shop. This was up in the Sierra, way up in the Sierras. And he'd tell a story that somebody came in and just developed their vacation film, out at the lake one day or something. And when the guy came to pick up the film, the guy who owned the camera house said, "Hey, did you take any, where'd you take these pictures at?" And he told him, he's all, "Well, have you seen these?" And he's showing pictures, and the pictures kind of show a Bigfoot in it. And, the man said, "No, my kids came back, ran and said, 'Hey, let's have the camera. We need to go take a picture or something.'" And then they ran off, and then they came back, and, they were like all hyped and chuckly, but they didn't say anything about it. And, but the guy swears there was absolutely a Bigfoot in those pictures.
Woof. That's nope. Again, like I said, from that audio clip we listened to earlier, when they started talking back and forth, I'm like, "Yep, deuces, I'm out. I'm done. Bye, Felicia." And I am Felicia. See ya. I'm out.
Right.
Oh. Anyway, believe it or not, man, we've already done an hour.
Yeah, I know. I was just looking at the time and my teacup.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take the break. We do still have 1 full hour left, so plenty of show left when we come back from the break. My name is Rick Robinson. He is Ordnance J. Packard. You're listening to Juxtaposition, and this is Juxtober, where we do a show every week instead of every 2 weeks. So our final one will be next Saturday, and we're going to do a roundtable and kind of bring in some other folks, like an anthropologist that's actually part of our network, and some other Bigfoot enthusiasts and those kind of things, just to kind of have a discussion about everything we've talked about this past month. So make sure you join us for that next Saturday night. But for now, we're going to take a break so Amish can go refill his tea. We'll be right back. Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Are you ready to reach for the stars? Tune in to The Lost Wanderer, the #1 monthly podcast on good pods in astronomy. Join our host, Jeff, as he takes you on an interstellar adventure to explore the mysteries of space and the wonders of science. From rocket launches and distant galaxies to the latest discoveries in astronomy, each episode is a thrilling ride through the cosmos. Don't just gaze at the stars, come explore the universe with us. Follow The Lost Wanderer wherever you get your podcasts, and let's discover the stars together.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Green man in the desert night, Bigfoot roaming out of sight. Government shadows, secrets deep, conspiracies unfold while we sleep. Strange encounters unexplained, truth is out that really shame. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling history, stories untold. Area 51, a whispered name. UFO science. Strange encounters unexplained. Truth is out there, bravely chained. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling mystery, stories untold. Skeptics doubt, believers yearn for answers hidden yet to learn. In the twilight zone where logic ends, the search continues without end. Strange encounters unexplained. Truth is out there, bravely chained. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling mystery, stories untold. Truth is out there. Truth is out there.
And welcome into hour 2 of Juxtaposition. This is week 4 of our deep dive into the world of cryptids. My name is Rick Robinson. He's Ordnance J. Packard. And tonight we are discussing the ones like us. Probably, to me, the scariest of the cryptids, because there is just, as I joke often about this thing, this game of closeness called 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. That's about where we are between these things and us, is about 6 degrees of separation. So they're close enough to us that they let you in. And you're right, probably maybe even a little bit less, but they're close enough to us that they remind us not only of what we used to be, but if we're not careful, what we actually could become again. I think that may be part of what makes them so scary to me.
Yeah, and that kind of harkens back to the first episode of this when we were talking about the Wendigo. Is the Wendigo is us. It's born of us, not just mythologically, but the Wendigo. The myth of the Wendigo is that when it's cold and food stocks run low, and you resort to the ultimate taboo, you become the Wendigo out of selfishness.
Yeah, it's funny because the bump stocks dusted off a really old scenario where there was, in fact, a time when people thought a Wendigo was raiding a village, and they talked about that tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. That was a great show there tonight. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna start steering us back towards the topic.
Yeah.
But
please do. Course correct us, sir.
Somebody's got to do it. It's usually you lately, though. I've noticed.
Yeah.
Like you were getting on.
With this stuff, you see these scripts that I wrote for this. They're so dense. But
I know. But they're good, though. They're good.
Okay, well then, whenever you want me to fire into them, I'll do that.
All right. So if Bigfoot and the Yeti are the banner icons of modern cryptozoology, and they are, they're also just 2 branches on a global family tree. Every continent, every culture seems to carry its own version of what we call the wild man. Smaller, stronger, sometimes gentler, sometimes far more unsettling. The pattern is almost biological. Humanity radiates outward, and behind it trails a shadow species that refuses to die out, or maybe simply refuses to be forgotten.
Yeah, the most popular of these outside of the most well-known of these outside of Bigfoot and the Yeti is the orang pendek from Sumatra. It's literally translated as the short person. It's a compact biped that stands between 3 and 5 feet tall, covered in brown hair, and it walks with a human stride. Western naturalists began collecting reports in the early 1900s. Dutch colonials described seeing smaller, muscular figures, the hobbits you were looking for, vanish into the foliage. In 1990, British researchers Debbie Martyr and Jeremy Holton led repeated expeditions into Sumatra jungles, returning with footprint casts showing human-like arches and opposable big toes, features incompatible with the orangutans or gibbons in the area. And for locals, though, this was never about science. The orang pendek, it was their neighbor. It wasn't a discovery. He was the keeper of the taboo zones. The one who punished disrespect of the forest.
So it almost sounds like the Rudy Hobbit and cousin its sister had babies.
Right.
It's kind of what it sounds like. So the accounts carry unique credibility because of their consistency. Eyewitnesses separated by decades describe the same details: long arms, short legs, upright posture, and an expression almost human in nature. Cryptozoologists link it to the recently discovered Homo florensis of nearby Flores Island, a species of miniature humans that lived as recently as 50,000 years ago. See, I'm telling you, it was the Rudy Hobbit and cousin its sister. If a small tool using hominid could survive undetected on one Indonesian island, why not another? The orang pendek stands as the closest thing to a plausible surviving cousin in modern cryptid lore. Dude,
now,
that's
I mean, to put that into perspective, 50,000 years ago, that was in the tail end of the last ice age. We were around 50,000 years ago.
yeah. I mean,
The thing that survived the ice age was in the temperate or tropical zones. Sumatra qualifies for that. So, I mean, there's no reason that an offshoot of Homo sapien wouldn't have existed around there. I mean, we know about the Neanderthals and we coexisted with them. And we're starting to find other species that were around at the time as well. And it's no big stretch for us to think that, I mean, Jesus Christ, Japanese soldiers held out on Pacific Islands for 40 years after the war. Right. They wouldn't surrender until their commanding officer came and told them the war was over. They thought it was a round eye trick. So.
Oh, you stupid round eye, you lied to us. Oh, sorry.
But up in the north, you have the Almas. These are in the Caucasus Mountains in Mongolia, and they fill the same ecological niche. Soviet-era documents contain dozens of reports from soldiers and villagers describing haired-covered humanoids living in the remote valleys. In the 1950s, a Georgian scientist named Boris Porshnev convinced the Soviet Academy of Sciences to fund a wild man study, arguing that the Almas represented a surviving Neanderthal population. But the program collapsed under ridicule, but the field notes survive and testimonies describing the creature that could weave simple tools and even communicate through gestures. For a regime obsessed with human progress, the idea of an older, untamed intelligence living in its own backyard was very uncomfortable to the Soviets.
I can imagine. So the most famous Alma story actually belongs to Zina, a woman captured in the 1800s near Caucasus village of Tikani. Tikani, I'm not sure. Described as immensely strong, covered in reddish hair, damn gingers, and incapable of speech. Wait, maybe not so bad after all. She lived among villagers for years and bore children with local men. Genetic testing of her supposed descendants in the 2010s showed ordinary human DNA, fueling claims she was simply an isolated feral human. But oral histories paint a more ambiguous picture. Zena. I keep thinking warrior princess. As something halfway between woman and legend, the embodiment of a line humanity might have shared a campfire with before the dawn of writing.
And down in Australia, you got the Yowie. And, that fills the continent with its oldest footprints. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories describe giant hairy beings that coexisted with humans long before the colonists arrived. They were not uniformly monstrous. Some were ancestral or even protective. European settlers eager to catalog the continent's fauna logged encounters of their own with the Yowie. Massive bipeds seen across riverbeds vanishing into eucalyptus groves. In 1876, a report in an Australian Town and Country Journal described an indescribable animal of man-like shape. The more the colonies expanded, the closer the Yowie seemed to follow. It was like a moral boundary that kept retreating west.
So you know what the Yowie is, right? You know what they do. They protect the regular Australian folks from spider season.
Yes.
All
these years later, that still creeps you out, huh?
Yes.
The spiders of Australia.
Dude, I mean, seriously, like, I'm sitting here and I'm looking for filler content while I'm filling in on one of the morning shows I was helping with for a while. And all of a sudden I see this thing pop up on the screen and it looks like it's snowing in Australia. And I'm like, I don't think that's snow. And no, it was freaking spider webs.
Yeah, there's a breed of spider down in Australia. It probably kills you. That it does if you're familiar with parachute spiders, it'll put out a string of silk and let the wind catch it. Well, in Australia, this happens by the millions. It's like paratroopers landing on D-Day.
Yeah, it's like that
blanketed this whole town in web.
It's like that crab walk thing in part of it. So that was the other thing. Like in Jesse Waters the other day was showing a clip in Australia of like this millions of crabs that were like traveling to mate, and I'm like, Australia is just hell on earth. I don't know why anybody would live there. But anyway,
Don't forget, I saw a massive sponge migration.
This is true.
Migrated 2 feet.
Hey, for them that was massive though. But yeah, so the Yeren, or wild men of central China's Hubei and Hunan provinces, occupy a similar space. Official state interest in the 1970s led to full-on expeditions, completely government-sponsored teams collecting footprints, hair samples, and eyewitness reports. Don't tell them what they don't want to hear. They're going to weld your door closed. Oh, wait, sorry. Right. One 1976 investigation logged over 100 independent testimonies. Hair analysis pointed to an unknown primate, but the findings quietly disappeared into bureaucratic hell. In a country that celebrates human achievement and control, the existence of a primitive parallel species remains ideological inconvenient. Still, locals in the Shenandoah Forest Zone continue to report tall, rust-colored figures crossing roads or watching from ridgelines. Why are all these things freaking gingers?
Right. I mean, even you mean a lot of reports of Bigfoot are ginger.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I think we're finding the missing link. I think all the gingers are hairless big feet.
But excuse me, hang on. Trying not to die here. You see, the pattern always repeats with these. The Hibagon in Japan, Mabahugarni in the Amazon, Captura in Central Asia, Mandenburg in India. Each of these cultures project its fears and desires into the wild around it. The core ingredients never change: hair, height, intelligence, and distance. It's as though our subconscious insists on populating the blank spaces with something that looks back, something witnessing our advancements.
Yeah. So what unites these hominid legends is not evidence, but evolution's ghost. Fossil records confirm that Homo sapiens was never alone. At least 8 other human species once shared the planet. Many overlapped geographically and temporarily. The Neanderthals faded into Europe, and the Denisovans in Asia, and others, like the mysterious Homo luzonensis of the Philippines, appeared and vanished with no explanation. The folklore of shadow people in the forest might be cultural memory passed down through storytelling, or even genetic memory, a haunting from the Pleistocene encoded in myth.
Just because I use that word a lot when I'm arguing with climatards, Pleistocene.
Yeah.
But the anthropological
paradigm, Indian name. I live in Indian territory. I could have corrected you butchering Indian names, but I didn't.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Okay, fine. But the anthropological paradox in these stories, it persists in the same regions where ancient DNA finds have emerged. The Caucasus, Southeast Asia, the Pacific Rim. Each is a known crossroads of human evolution, and that overlap doesn't prove survival, but it blurs the lines between folklore and fossil. The villagers describing small forest people in Sumatra, may not be wrong in kind, just in time.
But debunkers often suggest misidentified animals, sun bears standing upright, macaques glimpsed at dusk, or hoaxes fueled by tourism. Yet even skeptics admit that the sheer geographic spread of the wild man myth defies coincidence. How did isolated cultures separated by oceans invent the same archetype down to the hair, texture, and gait? The explanation may be less biological than psychological, a global echo of what it meant to share the world with others like us, and to realize that we might have actually been what drove them away.
Yeah, cultural analysis calls this the hominid shadow. The idea that each society carries an internal fossil record and its own evolutionary path. The wild man becomes the conscience of extinction, haunting us and reminding us that it could have just as easily been us. It's kind of like survivor's guilt. And it's not because he exists, but because we suspect he once did. And the stories keep him alive is kind of a reminder. You just like again with the Wendigo, the stories don't eat people, you're going to become one. And in the case of these, don't fuck up, you can go extinct too.
Yeah, I mean, so, and this just occurred to me, so bear with me for a second. I'm trying to articulate something.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talk about on this show all the time, and it came up already once before, is the Akashic field or the whole collective consciousness. So that may or may not explain some of these commonalities as well. But with some of the other stuff that we've talked about, like the fact that there is a theory that Atlantis might not have necessarily been a lost city, so to speak, but an alien culture that was actually visiting with us. What if some of these different offshoots were when they started experimenting with our ancestors and we're when they felt like they got it right?
That's so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But that's also the Anunnaki. So, I mean, that goes both ways on that, too. The stories of the Anunnaki was that they experimented on us to make us a slave rate. It's the premise of Battlefield Earth. L. Ron Hubbard basically ripped off Sumerian and Indian mythology. So, yeah. Yeah, but even with modern science, the line between extinct and extant keeps shifting. The coelacanth was thought gone for 65 million years until one swam into a net. Gorillas were a native myth until 1902. The Orang-Pengut could just be another slow revelation waiting for its turn. The absence of proof is camouflage.
So where Bigfoot is frontier Americana and the Yeti is mountain theology, these smaller stranger cousins bring the wild man home. They remind us that the human family tree isn't a tidy trunk, but a tangled living thicket. Each rustle in the undergrowth might be ancestry reaching back. I don't like that imagery. I don't know why, but something about that imagery just did not sit well in my head.
I kind of liked it.
Well, you wrote it. I'm sure you liked it.
That's fair. Yeah, but if these things truly exist, they're the last uncolonized minds on Earth. It's intelligence without cities, culture without conquest. And if they don't, then they're proof of something even more uncanny. It's that across millennia and continents, humanity dreams the same dream in the same shape.
I don't know which one of those potential scares me more, because, I mean, with some of this stuff is actually being able to be borne out now, though, like the tiny humans on the tropical islands. So I don't know whether I would prefer that these things once existed and eventually, because we were the superior species, so to speak, we ran them off, or if they're all just part of us trying to make sense of our universe. I don't know which one would you prefer, you think?
Both. I'm happy with both. Jeff makes a great point in the chat too. He said until the 20th century, these primates were unknown. Bonobo, Kipuji, Lasula, Otiorang, they could absolutely exist or not have. And it's just so much of just what has become zoology now was cryptozoology not long ago.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much the world we live in today, because technology seems to be progressing to a point, and our understanding of DNA has progressed to the point where we're like what I was talking about earlier. For the longest time, it was a well-known scientific fact that we supposedly shared 99% of the same DNA as a chimp, and that is known not to be the case today because they're able to more distinctly understand the formation of DNA. And this goes back to some of the things that we were talking about earlier in the program with the way that DNA technology is so much more easily mappable today. I really wish somebody would go back and redo some of these tests from even just a decade or so ago, because in technological sense, that's 4 generations ago.
And it's like, okay, so I mean, to your point is, I know that when they study a hair, it has to be destroyed. I get that, but in a lot of these things too, they're not bringing back a single solitary hair. It's not like something that, hey, this was a Bigfoot pillow on this rock. We found a hair. They've been found in clumps. They didn't destroy the entire clump. They haven't destroyed all the scat, and even in plaster casts, you could probably find DNA if you went to looking, because we shed constantly.
So the question then becomes, are they not looking, or do they not want to look? Because I kind of think it might be starting to be that second one.
The one thing I didn't build into this, just because we had so much to go through with this, is the Yeti scalp in Tibet. As they have it there, they can test it anytime. Well, they could before the Chinese took over Tibet, but it's in a monastery there, and it's go look. China obviously doesn't want to do it because that's antithesis to their beliefs. Of the Great Leap Forward. But somebody sneak in, grab a hair follicle, test it now. The DNA is still there if you were actually wanted to test it. So that tells me, it's like when we were talking to you earlier about, the Bigfoot fur sample. They mocked her about her methodology, but they never attempted to recreate it again. In science, if you want to prove something wrong, you do it too. You don't just make fun of the premise. That's science. Science isn't debunked. It just can't be replicated.
Well, I mean, that's honestly part of it. Yeah, no. We'll let it slide though. But no, I mean, that's part of what drives me crazy today with modern science is they act as if all of this has all been settled. Science is never actually ever supposed to have been settled. It is a
most infuriating statement I have ever heard. I actually punched a wall when Obama said those words.
It's just become part of the lexicon because now whenever, I mean, like if you try to have a conversation outside of conspiracy theorist circles on stuff like this, all this stuff was settled science a long time ago. I hear that so many times and I'm like, I'm so tired of that sentence because the entire premise of science is that it is never supposed to be settled. It is a constant quest for knowledge. And it's like Jeff said, up until the 20th century, half the things that we take for granted today as being existing species were cryptozoology just before. They were things that were just imagined or that people had thought they had seen but couldn't verify. So the fact that, when you really just are trying to have a conversation about something, and it's everywhere now. I think that's what drives me crazy because everybody talks about how bad it is with politics, but it's with everything now. You can try to sit down and have a conversation about things like this or about this object that's supposed to be hurtling towards Earth that everybody keeps doing AI renderings. Oh, look, it's a mothership, dude. I hope it is.
Yeah,
because SMOD was supposed to take care of us like 10 years ago and failed miserably.
I was laughing with all the SMOD references Aggie dropped last night too.
Dude, those were great. That's actually what put it back up. That's what actually put it back in my brain pan.
Right. No, I mean, but you're right. It's out. I mean, you have to. Politics has become so toxic that it's infected everything. You have to take a side on everything. Die Hard is a Christmas movie, eggnog or cider. I mean, it's just everything, you know, and it's funny. I joke about that, but you know, the eggnog wars are a lot of fun. It's great memes on both sides. But yeah, so it's even with this, you know, it's that if you are a skeptic, it's not just a matter of being a skeptic anymore. It has become your religion to actively not believe it, and no evidence will ever change your mind about that. And you know, and that's the one kind of thing too, is that those who have a scientific mind, which are generally the Bigfoot researchers, is that, you know, they operate under the premise that probably not, but again, lack of evidence is not lack of existence. So, you know, and that's where the real science is done. Science is always about going into the frontiers, even the well-trodden ones. You know, and M in chat is a physicist. You know that too. Is that, you know, it's you're going over the same ground because while you think you understand it, you don't. You know, you're always trying to find out. Maybe I don't. And you know, that's what real science is.
And that's all I want to get back to is real science. I don't remember the last time anybody's done anything that I would consider real science in quite some time, because it's all tailored looking for specific results from the time it starts. It's not actually trying to answer a question. It's framing the question to get the answer before you ever start looking for the answer. And that's not science.
I think that's why I have such a boner for the E8, you know, the quantum gravity project, because they are doing science. You know, they're not, you know, just trying to just keep stapling on shit to quantum theory, you know, to try and make it, or string theory to try and make it work. Well, that didn't work, so let's look at it a new way. And that's what I kind of admire about them. And, you know, a lot of people say a lot of stuff about Michio Kaku, that he's more of a futurist than a scientist anymore. And I agree with that, but he still has the wide-eyed optimism of a futurist. He's just hidebound stuck to string theory, unfortunately, but that's his, you know, that's his thing.
That's his bread and butter, man. That's his bread and butter.
Right. You know, but he's still out there. I mean, he's not doing the science, but he's keeping up with it. You know, is where Tyson has just become the, you know, the great, what's the word for it? He's a fucking Karen, basically.
That was not the word I was going to go with, but that's nicer than the word.
No, he's a smug twat, but I was trying, I wanted to use a better word than I actually did. I had a better word for it, and then it just left my head. So
it's like, yeah, never mind. I forgot.
Yeah.
All
right.
right.
Look at that. Bottom of the hour again.
Yep. Time to go refill your tea again, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you were
late, I'm just said in the chat, they're still testing Newton's crap.
Well, yeah, of course, but
you know, I mean, gravity is the one force we really don't understand. I mean, well, there's a lot of force, but it's the one that, you know, that's the one that eludes us in the chain of the strong, the weak. Anyway, go to break.
All right. So if you missed it, here's your chance to catch it. This is Jeff's latest addition to our Juxtober theme for the month. And here we go. Welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the final segment of the fourth of the 4 of the 5 episodes of Juxtaposition's Juxtober this year. So I think this may be a recent record for us. We've done 4 in a row.
Yeah, if we make it through next week, then that is the first Juxtober. We went 100%.
I thought we managed to do it once before, but I could be wrong.
No, there was a skip, and we made it up the first weekend in October. So there was only a 1-week skip. It's not like the Demonology and Witches one where we were just plagued with technical difficulties and life shitting on us.
Well,
seriously,
yeah, that one, that especially that Demonology one, dude. I was like, I really was starting to think there was like some weird stuff going on in my house. So
yeah, that's. I mean, I know I keep saying this. I really don't want it to sound like that we're building our own mythology on the show. But for those of you who were listening at the time, you know we made every effort to do those. And we would have, it's like technology would crap out an hour before the show, especially during the Demonology one. That was just, I think we did 2 of 5, maybe 3 of 5 before we just said bag it. And, but yeah, it's my computer's working great all day. Went to restart before the show, which is, my style. And, just so that way everything's fresh and clean. Wouldn't come back. Came back after the show was too late to start. No reason for it.
Yeah, it was just, well, same thing happened to me. I mean, it's like lately I've noticed with all the glitches I've been having, I've had to adopt your style. I usually come in and restart like 30 minutes before I start doing anything. Just so because I'm always in here working usually anyway. But yeah, so I'm impressed. And honestly, I thought the other day, I was like, dude, did I just back us into doing 6 in a row? And I was like, oh, wait, no, next Saturday is our normal Saturday. Yes, it actually worked out because that means we already knew what our topic was for returning to our regular schedule. So it worked out. So we're doing a panel as we get back on our regular schedule. Anyway.
Good. So, then we get to take a week off. Not that we don't love doing this. I love Juxtober. I really do. It's my favorite. This and the Mandela Effect episode are my favorite yearly traditions. It's our only yearly traditions, but still.
Well, the one that's kind of becoming one of my new favorites, and it may actually start becoming a yearly tradition with all these new theories that are coming out, is all the different theories that are coming up with what time actually does. Because, I got a hold of one of those again today, and I spent like an hour reading through that. And I was like,
I just sent you down a rabbit hole when I sent you that E8 shit, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. But it's been a fun one. But it's good.
It's definitely a fun one. So, but for those of you who don't know what E8 is, we did a show a month and a half ago.
Yeah, about a month and a half ago.
Everything you know about time is wrong. And so we delved into the quantum world.
Well, to be fair, I started you down that rabbit hole, and you took my rabbit hole and said, hold my beer. So it worked out well. But anyway, so speaking of rabbit holes, we still got to finish this one out. So
not just rabbit holes, but digital.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the final trail we're going down today, because that is our true final frontier, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. Because at some point, the forest stopped being deep enough. The last wilderness we had left wasn't the mountains or the jungles. It was in the wires. It's funny that this is coming up in this, because that's exactly what I've been talking about on my Sunday show. So that's that. Seeing that imagery popping up in here, I was like, wait, that's weird. That's almost the same exact imagery from anyway. So as the century turned digital, the wild man shed its fur and stepped into the feed. Now he lives where attention lives. I think they mean where attention whores live, but anyway, not where the trees do. These are the metacryptids, creatures born from collective imagination, sustained by signal, and as real as belief could possibly make them.
Yeah, the pivot with this, the first one that entered the collective consciousness, started in 2009 with a single Photoshop contest on the $10 forums of Something Awful. An image of a tall, faceless man in a dark suit, arms like branches, lurking behind children on a playground, and the caption was, "We don't want to go, but the others said we must." Within hours, Users began adding their own found photos and diary entries, and within days they had built an entire mythology around the Slender Man. Within weeks, people were claiming to see him. Slender Man became the first creature designed on the internet and later found in the real world, complete with sightings, dreams, and a tragedy that proved belief could turn pixels into blood.
Yeah, I remember when this became a thing. Slender Man worked because he echoed something ancient. The forest stalker, the abductor in the night, the tall shadow whose face you can't quite remember. But unlike Bigfoot, he didn't need geography. He needed bandwidth. Every repost was a ritual, every manipulation an invocation. Folklorists call this ostension. When a legend inspires real world behavior and then feeds the legend again, the loop itself becomes the habitat. But, looping this back to the conversation we were having just about 5 minutes ago, what if this is one of those things where future behavior is inflicting itself onto the past, so they therefore technically created Slender Man?
Right. Or Slender Man retroactively. Yeah, it's and that's kind of the thing. And it's in the mythos of the cyberspace that we're going to be going through, with the cryptids that live in cyberspace, they have made themselves every bit as real. And the societal contagion it's amazing at how quickly these things spread now. It's like it took 30 years for the Mothman to move from the East Coast to Chicago. It took minutes for Slender Man to all of a sudden enter folklore to the point where nobody remembers when we first started talking about it. And then Slender Man's always been here. And right on the heels of Slender Man was the Rake. He was another creature, of the forums and whisper chains. Hairless and humanoid, crouched at the end of beds in the small hours, and unlike Slender Man's slow dread, the Rake embodied raw intrusion, the thing that bypasses doors and logic. Sightings spread through YouTube dramatizations, creepypasta readings, and true encounters emailed to paranormal shows. None of it could be verified, yet it all felt the same: blank face, long fingers, absolute silence. It's the same thing that we talked about with shadow people. It's it was as if the wild man's body had been stripped and turned into pure fear.
So it's interesting because this didn't occur to me until just now. Because I've envisioned the Slender Man before, but something about having it described like that reminded me of something. You remember the species, the Silence on Doctor Who?
Yeah.
That's kind of what that's the vibe I'm getting from that description. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but that's the vibe I'm getting from that description.
They've always been here. Yeah.
Yeah. We just never knew. So, but along with all these that we've been talking about, there was another one, because then came the Momo, born not of myth but art, a grotesque bird woman sculpture by Japanese artist Keisuke Asawa, miscast by viral panic as a suicide demon. The original work, Mother Bird, was never meant to frighten, yet an image ripped from context became global folklore. Parents warned children, schools banned social media, and news anchors repeated the story with the same breathless cadence once reserved for Bigfoot sightings. Momo showed that in the attention economy, even art can evolve into entity. Myth no longer waits for wilderness. It blooms wherever data clusters.
And then this just kept going. In 2010, digital folklore had learned to self-propagate, and then we had Siren Head, a towering skeletal monster with air raid sirens for a head. It began as an illustration by Trevor Henderson, and within a year, gamers, filmmakers, and witnesses were all posting encounters. Audio distortion, the telltale warning tone became the new campfire crackle. The vision of the wild man and the roar of the forest had turned into the hum of a transmission tower.
starting to feel like that Ron Popeil guy. But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
While some digital cryptids trace back to identifiable creators, others seem to have grown organically, like the crawlers or palemen, described across platforms by people with nothing in common except the same story: emaciated, white-skinned figures glimpsed on highways or in basements, moving like spiders but human-sized. Unlike Slenderman, there's no known origin post. The report surfaced simultaneously across Reddit, 4chan, and YouTube in the early 2010s, spreading faster than any researcher could track. The anonymity itself actually became part of the myth. When thousands of people described the same invented creature independently, all within the same few weeks span of one another, the question shifts from who made it to what signal are they all receiving?
And the creepiest thing about this stuff, and this is creepy. This one's absolutely fueled by creepypasta, and that's where the backrooms emerged. And what that is, that's a collaborative hallucination built from a single image of a yellow carpeted office maze. Users imagine monsters stalking those endless fluorescent corridors, then wrote, drew, and filmed entire subworlds in there. Today, the backroom functions like a living ecosystem for digital cryptids. Each creator adds a new predator, a new rule, a new fear. Myth is now open sourced, and you don't stumble into the backrooms. You scroll into them. You fall into them. And that one case, we've talked about it, and they talked about it on Front Porch Forensics of the hotel in Los Angeles down on Skid Row, where that blogger in the elevator disappeared, and then they found her up in the water tower.
Mm-hmm.
That she was doing, one of the tricks she was doing was how to get into the back rooms.
This gives a whole new inflection point. This gives a whole new inflection point to doom scrolling.
Right. Yeah, no, totally.
So psychologists describe these entities as thought forms, manifestations of shared focus. Tibetan mystics called them tulpas, independent beings created through meditation and belief. The internet industrialized the process. Where a monk might conjure one tulpa over years, 1 million users can apparently now birth one in a weekend on a thread. The conditions are identical: concentration, repetition, and emotional charge. The wild man didn't vanish. He went viral.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's just with the quickness that this spreads, and like I keep talking about, is that a lot of these, they have no origin point. I mean, yes, Slenderman had an origin point. Momo and the Rake, they all had origin points. But a lot of these, like the Palemen, they just appeared, and the backrooms just appeared. And I know a big thing on creepypasta is to do ARGs, alternate reality game, but at some point people start believing in them. And in this case, traditional bunking doesn't really quite apply here. There's no footprints to measure. There's no DNA to test. There's only, engagement metrics. And even the skeptics acknowledge the physical consequences: anxiety spikes, communal sightings, real world violence. Is when the belief in these things organizes around fear, the digital and the psychological merge, and the body count makes fiction real. You forget, people have died because of Slenderman.
Scary thought when you really just stop to think about just that alone. That is a terrifying thought. But what's most striking is how these metacryptids preserve the archetypal structure that we've been discussing for this past month. Of their flesh and blood predecessors, Slenderman is the new forest stalker, the Rake, the cave beast, Momo, the banshee, Siren Head, the thunder god warning of disaster. Each retells an ancient story through new media. Where older cultures used oral tradition, we use algorithms. The myths haven't changed, the medium has. So this actually brings up a very interesting point. So what if these are newer versions of the same cryptids? They've transformed themselves into things that the younger folks understand, and maybe that's why they've managed to root themselves so quickly. Because
Well, yeah,
they are the same things. They're just, it's like they are in fact just using a different medium than they used before.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting to with that, is that, I mean, up until 2000, and you wonder, why don't you hear big stories about Bigfoot anymore? Why don't you hear stories about this or that, whatever? It's because we moved and they moved into the digital space, and the same fears, the same warnings, transfer in to So this transformation, it kind of mirrors our changing relationship. What I'm getting to is a transfer. It mirrors our relationship with the wilderness. We once feared what lay beyond the campfire, and now we fear what's on the other side of the screen. The unknown no longer howls, it pings. In this sense, the internet has become the next dark forest. That's why we have stories of the dark web, and shit like we've invented these dark spaces in a space we can control that we don't have control over. The Leviathan web and shit like that. It's the line between myth and malware grows thinner each year in these cases.
So there is a cultural symmetry in play here, though. The more surveillance and data we produce, the more faceless our monsters become. The wild man had eyes, the metacryptid has none. It's anonymous, collective, a mirror of the network itself. What we call monsters are just the shapes our systems cast when the lights flicker. But some of this, as we start talking about fearing what lay behind the screen, we're talking about an entire other ethos of myth, because remember what people used to think about mirrors and photography, that pictures were capturing the souls, and that mirrors were actually windows into another universe where everything was exactly the same but reversed. And in and of itself, we're talking about the continuation of another two sets of myths now being combined into one space behind the screen.
Mm-hmm. And it's from an anthropological perspective, we've completed an evolutionary loop with this. The wild man began as nature's revenge for human arrogance. Bigfoot became guilt made into flesh. The metacryptid is information punishing attention. Each stage adapts the same moral code: hubris, births, haunting. We create the things that remind us we're not gods. That even in something entirely created 100% by man, the internet, monsters still lurk there.
Yeah, here there be monsters. I would like to make one point of order. I firmly believe this is information punishing attention whores, but that's only a mild difference. So the digital hauntings also resurrect ritual. Reposting becomes invocation. Hashtags become sigils. The viral spread becomes contagion. Myth reborn. When you share a story about Slenderman, you're participating in a communal rite older than writing. You're feeding the fire, even if the fire glows from a screen instead of a log.
Yeah, I was rethinking that line I put in there where hashtags become sigils. I think a more apt description is hashtags become totems.
I could see that.
But in the end, the metacryptids, they collapse the distance between the storyteller and the subject. It's no longer observers describing a beast in the woods. We are the ecosystem producing these things. The wilderness moved inside our tablet and moved inside our phone. It became the belief in these things made them the apex predator. The old footprints in mud have just become timestamps and metadata.
Yeah, remember when we used to joke about the ghost in the machine?
Yeah. So we invented it.
So now apparently it's cryptids.
But this also goes back to the things we've talked about in the other cryptid episodes and with the shadow people, in that it like with the Buddhist belief in creating a tulpa, that so much attention is spent on creepypasta YouTube videos and something awful forums, that manifested these things into existence. Again, people have died because of Slender Man.
So this leads us all back to the philosophical pivot that has been a big part of this show. The wild man's, our attempt to exile him failed because we wound up carrying him with us. When the forest fell, he migrated into our imagination. When imagination digitized, he migrated yet again. The next cryptid doesn't need wilderness or even witnesses, only a network connection and enough eyes to see it all at once.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier too, is that, the screen is the new clearing. The glow from it is the new campfire. And everything beyond that circle of light, something still waits, whether it's digitally or just on the edge of town. It's taller than memory, but still faceless as the crowd.
So, as we started this journey 4 weeks ago, we began in the dark woods of hunger and taboo with the Wendigo stalking famine and fear. We moved beneath the surface where the lake monsters stirred in still water, then looked upward to the winged shadows over our heads. Tonight, we close the circle. The final step of the hunt doesn't end in the wilderness, it ends at the mirror. Every creature we've chased this month, from the caves to the cloud, shares one shape: the outline of us.
Yeah, I mean, the wild man was never just the other. He was just the first version we tried to bury. He reminded us that something inside the human story resists polish. Going back to your comment about how we're all growing beards now. We called him Sasquatch, Yeti, or Yowie. The different names are the same intuition that evolution never erased the wilderness inside us. And when we stare into the dark and it stares back, it's because we taught it how to.
Yeah, so each myth we've traced, each footprint in the snow or shadow and in JPEG, marked the same boundary line: civilization versus instinct, control versus curiosity. The beasts in the stories weren't warning us about the world, they were warning us about forgetting it. They stood guard at the edge of comfort, proof that mystery is the last wild habitat we in fact have left.
Yeah. Back in the old days, the edge was literal. It was the tree line, the river, the mouth of the cave, the train trestle. Now it's the edge of the signal, the bottomless scroll, where the stories breed faster than truth can follow. The new monsters were made of code and rumor, but the rituals bound them haven't changed. We built the fire, we tell the story, we listen for what moves just outside the light.
Excuse me, sir, but I have it on good authority. We in fact did not start the fire. Just pointing out.
You know what? Billy Joel is talking about. We started the fire.
So the longer you look at these creatures, the more they change shape. The Bigfoot prints turn to fingerprints on a keyboard. The Yeti's howl becomes static on a live stream. Ugh, I hate static on live streams. Oh wait, sorry. The cryptids evolve, but their function doesn't. They keep the unknown alive. A world without mystery is a world already dead, and somehow deep down, we all know it.
One of the things with Juxtober is that it has always been kind of a pilgrimage, deep dive into for curiosity. Whether it's beasts or vampires or beings from above, the ones that look like us. Every time it's just a mirror of us angled differently, and together, they show the same reflection. We invent monsters to remember what it means to be human. But the monsters have also always been there with us. It's like the old parable is, did we create God after he created us? And it's the same thing. Is it, did we create these monsters, or have we always lived with them? Just now that we treat science instead of, as a religion in itself, this still is like, it still requires faith for these. It requires just as, I just lost my train of thought when I was going to go with that. God damn it,
dude! You were building nicely too. So I'm just sitting here just waiting. I'm like, he's going to get us there. He's going to get us there. He's going to get us there, and no,
and it's gone. God damn it! I'm sorry.
Hey,
it's going to come back to me at 3 a.m. I mean, fuck.
Just text it to me. It'll be fine. At least that way you'll get it out.
All right.
But all right. So as we start wrapping this one up, next week is the final piece of the puzzle. our attempt to square the circle. Because next week's going to be a panel, and we're going to bring all the creatures to one table, not to solve them, but to ask what they've been trying to tell us. Maybe the real pattern isn't biological or even digital. Maybe it's emotional. Our endless need for something to chase, something to fear, and still, in all of these different ways, trying to find a way to make our world make sense.
But as all the topics we do on the show just tie together to where it all just seems like it makes sense. It's just out of reach.
Every single time. Kind of like that train of thought.
The ones, yeah, exactly. Just like that train of thought. But you know, the one thing about all the things that we talk about on here and how they're all connected is that for you and me and, you know, a lot of the people listening, it sent us straight back to the keyboard to find out more.
The research is often the most fun part. I'm not even gonna lie.
And I've been having a blast doing this month on these.
Yeah, I think you may become our new Juxtober expert. You're good at this.
Okay. All right. And Jeff, yeah, you absolutely did nail the song without having read the script with Footprints in the Snow.
Yeah, dude, that all of his song work lately is amazing. I'm just now really starting to scratch the surface with this because I'm musically talented, but I can't read music for shite. So I'm having to get creative on how to tell it, how to do the things that I wanted to do. And some of them have been decent. I haven't put anything out as good as Jeff yet, but I'm gonna get there one of these days.
Well, the funny thing is, listen to the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said one of these days. So yeah.
Okay.
Next
well, the
time,
funny thing is, you know, Jeff talking about nailing it, and he's you know, with the lyrics and the songs, he's done it every week because he'll ask the topic, and I kind of give him, this is the weekly breakdown for Juxtober this year, and he's worked on a song. He worked several weeks ahead on, like the water and he's nailed every one of them with the content that we've carried because he doesn't see the script. I mean, yeah, we share a showroom, so he drops the music into it, but he doesn't want to read the script because he doesn't want to, ruin the experience of listening to the show and as it unfolds. And he has nailed. This is like we used to joke about when we were on the same night with Jeff and Al, and how we would cross-pollinate each other's shows without talking to each other. We would all frequently have the same topic, even though, and it wouldn't be like something that's like, hey, we're all talking about fucking whatever, whatever happened in the news. Is that because the three shows really weren't news. I mean, Al's was, but but we would all hit on the same theme, totally just with collective consciousness.
Well, so in one point, and honestly, it started that way on purpose because I never really wanted to cross-pollinate with anybody else because one of the things that I hate about networks that do back-to-back programming is when you're like watching a news channel and every hour is a different host, but they're talking about the same 5 stories. I don't like that. So when we started putting back-to-back programming on, that was one of the things that I always tried to do was to make sure that we didn't, all share the same story, content, material, etc. So it wasn't really that we put out a list of the things we were talking about, but I just figured if we weren't telling everybody what we were talking about, there was less of a chance of us, duplicating each other's work. But then it became like a challenge because even though we weren't talking about it, it was okay. How close to everybody's concept are we going to get this week? So it kind of became a challenge where we were like, we're not going to tell anybody what we're talking about, and we're just going to see how closely everything lines up. And it was amazing how often that happened, like terrifyingly amazing because it
was spooky.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the first things that started me down the Akashic Field rabbit hole because I'm like, there has to be an explanation as to how people that don't live in the same geographic locations, that aren't telling each other what we're talking about ahead of time, keep landing on different aspects of the same topic to the point where we're discussing the same things, but we're discussing them from such disparate angles that we're basically weaving an entire 3-hour thing together without meaning to weave an entire 3-hour thing together. It was creepy. It was creepy. I kind of missed that sometimes.
What was even creepy about it too was that, it wasn't being redundant, but it was just building on each other's topic without knowing it, and That was the best thing about it. I think we started that, or no, we were the rap to that night.
Yeah, we were always the rap to that night, but we never told anybody what we were talking about until just before we went live.
Yeah. Or like, Jeff would start his show and I'd be like, holy shit, we're talking about that tonight too. I'd send him a text or something and this is the same thing we're talking about tonight.
Oh, Jeff just got you in the chat. Next week on Juxtaposition, Orty finishes his train of thought.
Yes. Thank you. Probably.
Yeah.
If it does come to me at 3:00 in the morning, I'm absolutely jotting it down so I can shout it out at the start of the next Juxtaposition. And another thing.
And another thing. You know what you need? No. Wait, just remind me if you manage to make a note of the thought, remind me so I can have the previously on Juxtaposition.
Yeah, on Juxtaposition.
Because that'll be perfect. But as we start wrapping things up, I would like to make a suggestion to all of our listeners out there, because from what I can see, we've got quite a few. Maybe take some time this weekend and turn the screens off.
Yeah.
You know
what? Go out to the edge of the woods. And not just to touch grass, but, maybe you'll hear some tree knocks.
Maybe you'll hear some samurai Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Or
doom scroll, and not just the usual political doom scroll. Go find some creepypasta. That's one of the things I miss about Ron. I got him deep into creepypasta. It almost became a religion to him. That was he just like, dude, have you seen this? He was always sending me new creepypasta. I'm like, oh fuck yeah, And so it's like he became, he became my my creepypasta dealer because he was going deep. So
nice.
Miss you, Ron.
Dude, I was thinking about him last night when I started seeing those numbers. I'm like, dude, he would be beside himself.
Oh yeah.
Seeing, what this has actually turned into. I mean, last night amazed me in so many different ways because, look, you guys accidentally made something awesome with War of the Worlds, but you've built on it in such a way that, I mean, like I said, I had people that have never listened to anything that I've put out before because they hate politics that were like, oh my God, I just saw that link you put out and it was awesome. And for a minute, I didn't even realize it was you guys.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know the story, who are listening in, Ron was the original KLRN chat Denzian.
He was our norm.
Yeah, he was our norm. He was actually, he predates me with the network. And I think of all the hosts, aside from G, I've been here the longest. And aside from you and G. But he predated me in the chat. And there would be nights that he was the only one in chat, and he'd be bugging Rick, hey, you doing a show tonight? Rick's like, I don't feel like it. Get your ass on the mic. So for him to have been the OG one to last night where 4,000 of you were listening to us live, he was the prod. He would, when we didn't feel like doing the show or whatever, he would prod us into doing the show. And he pushed us into getting better every single time. And last night, like you said, he would have been beside himself. He would have been so proud of us last night.
I mean, so 4,200 live last night, and last time I looked, we've had over 600 hits on the Spreaker site today. So, I mean, we're talking about numbers that we would have thought were just impossible even just a few years ago. And just thinking about, him always, I mean, even when I was working here locally, one of the things that I got calls after the show. You had guys calling in from Kentucky. Did you know somebody called in from Michigan? Did you know? Did nobody tell you what I did before you guys started saying I could fill in?
Right.
I already have a nationwide audience.
What's funny is that thank you, Jeff. But also Jeff was there with us during the War of the Worlds to show you the evolution and how much X has helped us expand too. When we did War of the Worlds, Jeff and I were frantically trying to figure out how we could accommodate more than 25 people in the chat room, or it was 25 or 50, because it was like, we're really going to have to boost our plan on this plugin. And when we hit 100, we were worried chat was going to break. And we were beside ourselves with 100 listeners. To have 4,200 last night, plus another 600 in downloads. We got to thank all of you. You really are. You just thank you so much for listening to us. 20 Jeff says 25. Yeah, 25 was our original cap. And like, you think we're gonna break that? I don't know. We better up it just in case. And yeah, so but yeah, it's we do it because we would do this if there wasn't anybody listening to us. But the fact that so many of you do
I have in fact no one was listening.
I remember when Fu and I we'd get like 25 in the chat and go like, fuck yeah. You'd hit us afterwards. It's like, we made a nickel tonight on ad spend.
Yeah. Dude, I remember the first time we made a quarter and I was like, holy shit, we actually made 25 cents. Now we're at that. Now we're actually making at least a little bit of money off of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's enough to break even on the Spreaker bill, so I'll take it.
Yeah. As long as we're breaking even, that's great. But yeah. So thank you all. And thank you, Jeff. Your production last night was over the top.
Thank you, Jeff. Dude, your songs have been absolutely amazing. Like,
yeah. You're gonna have to make a Juxtaposition album. His album just dropped yesterday too. So you might have to make a Juxtaposition album, Juxtaposition soundtrack.
I was gonna say, I think he may have enough now or getting close because he's done quite a few different Jux songs.
No, he definitely has. We've got 11 Jux songs easily.
Which reminds me, I need to give him the passwords to get back into our store so he can start, because we can post digital content there too. I just keep forgetting to give him the password. Anyway, so we should probably start wrapping up because we're time. So where can folks find you, sir?
You can find me tomorrow on the Vincent Charles Project with Jeff and Janelle Waz, and of course the incomparable Vincent Charles, where we will be discussing whatever happened to. Tuesday I'll be on Manorama with you and Vincent Charles and hopefully Jeff and probably some random Canadian or two. On Wednesday I'm with you on Rick and Morty. Thursday I'm with Brad with the great hair on Culture Shift. And next Saturday, we conclude Juxtober with our panel show. We'll have BZ and Aggie and Jeff and hopefully and maybe one or two others. We should ask Kat too. I know he's back in. I know he's big into Bigfoot.
Yeah, we should see how many more we can snag in. I am going to say this before I tell everybody where they can find me. After this month, I have decided, because it has occurred to me, I have not taken any form of vacation in 5 years unless I've been sick or unless my house tried to kill me. So the week of Thanksgiving, since we already typically run a shorter schedule that week anyway, I ain't gonna do nothing. Just so everybody knows. So I'm taking that week off.
Well, with Jeff's technology, I think over the Thanksgiving weekend, we could probably run all of our holiday shows.
Probably, which is kind of what I'm thinking anyway, was figure out just, run whatever you guys want. That's why you do your shows. I'm not producing. I'm taking the week off. Fuck y'all. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to do it, I mean, the technology is pretty damn simple now, really.
Yeah.
So archives are a bit of a pain right now, but it's
not rocket surgery.
It used to be. Dude. So I know I said I'm about to wrap, but something else that floored me the other day. You remember how, years ago when I started doing this, my very first podcast was on a little thing called Block Talk Radio. That actually doesn't exist anymore.
That doesn't surprise me.
It did until like 3 months ago. It was still live 3 months ago, and then all of a sudden now it's just gone. I'm like, I was like, damn. But yeah, that was so. Blog Talk Radio was where we did everything first, and then I figured out Spreaker had a much cleaner sound to it. But Spreaker used to be a pain in the ass to get anything other than just one person talking. So then I spent 2 years figuring out how to cobble together a bunch of free software. And now we have stuff that does it for us. And I'm like, where was all this shit 20 years ago?
Well, it's like what we're using now to broadcast with. I mean, when we started this, we were using fucking Skype.
Yeah. Because there wasn't.
That was just because we made a judgment call, Skype or TeamSpeak.
Well, I mean, honestly, when I first started using Skype, there really wasn't anything else. It
Right.
was, and that's when I figured out Voicemeeter could let things talk between, Spreaker and Skype and sounds and everything else, and it was free. But yeah, trying to teach people how to do that on their computer, God, I thought JD was going to strangle me. Never make a New Yorker angry. That's all I'm going to say. It wasn't even on purpose. But anyway, we're going to get out of here. You guys can find me tomorrow night. Unfortunately, because of the wedding last week, I was not able to do the second episode of my series, but I don't have a wedding to perform tomorrow. So we'll be getting to the second episode in the Loss of Innocence series on Kingdom and Country tomorrow night. I think I'm just going to do that one at 10 because I still have some work to finish. I'm working on another special song for the broadcast. I haven't finished it yet. That should give me enough time to be able to do that. And then Monday night, America Off the Rails, also 10 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, the Rick Robinson Show kicks off again, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Tuesday night, back around with Manorama, hanging out with you and VC and probably some random Canadians and hopefully maybe even Jeff. And then Wednesday night, Full Boat, hanging out with you again, producing for G, doing the Bible study version of Kingdom and Country because it's the off week for Inquiry. And then Thursday night, Jen and Rick. Friday night, back around with He Said, She Said. Saturday night, back around doing this with you right after Front Porch Forensics. And yeah, that's the other reason I'm taking a week off. I realize I'm back to doing this stuff 7 days a week again. Anyway.
That's a choice.
It didn't start as a choice. That's what I'm trying to fix. But anyway, so we're going to get out.
So you just finished the week 5 song.
Show off. Show off. Show off. Anyway, we're going to get out of here, ladies and gentlemen. You can also find me on X at RowdyRick73. Also contribute to the LoftusParty.com, MisfitsPolitics.com, and Twitchy.com. And I produce the Loftus Party podcast, which drops on Tuesdays. That's it. We're leaving. Say goodnight, Amish.
Hail Hydra.
That's not what I told you to say, Amish. And no hailing of the Hydra. We've had this discussion.
You're not my supervisor.
Excuse me?